Hello students and welcome to today's writing lessons. Your learning targets today are, I'm going to teach you how to show rather than tell. I'm going to teach you how to bring your writing to life with details and voice, how to create brief compositions that establish a central idea in a topic sentence that includes supporting sentences with facts, details, and explanations that include a great concluding statement, and how to redrive drafts for coherence, that is, consistency, organization, and use of simple and compound sentences, and for audience. Good writers show the readers everything and tell them nothing. Writers show rather than tell by not only bringing feelings to life, but also when describing almost anything. For example, instead of saying it was crowded when the relatives visited, in her book, The Relatives Came, Cynthia Rylant writes, the relatives weren't particular about beds, which was good since there weren't any extras. So a few squeezed in with us, and the rest slept on the floor, some with their arms thrown over the closest person, or some with an arm across one person and a leg across another. You see how Cynthia Rylant showed us what it looked like when the relatives visited? She just didn't say our relatives came, we went to sleep, we got up and ate breakfast, we went on a trip, we ate a lot of food. That's telling. Show the readers everything. Tell them nothing. So when a writer writes, I want to teach you today that writers show rather than tell all the time. Writers can show the darkness of a gray sky, the length of a trip. They show that a dog's bark was startling. In fact, writers can use show not tell as a rule for most writing. I want to tell you a story. Many years ago, I got to speak with a well-known author. And I got to tell her how much I loved her writing, and I asked her, what's her secret? And she only said 3 words to me that I still remember to that day. And she said, they're the secret to really good writing. Can you guess what they are? Yes, they are show rather than tell. I want to look at another example of showing and not telling in another mentor text. Patricia Polacco also took that same advice when she wrote the book Pink and Say. So imagine your story and other stories that you read as a movie in your mind, and then you can tell if they're telling you or they showing you. So follow along as I read this excerpt from Pink and Say. I watched the sun edge toward the center of the sky above me. I was hurt real bad. For almost a year I'd been in this man's war, the war between the states. Being just a lad, I was wishing I was home. My leg burned and was angry from the lead ball that was lodged in it just above my knee. I felt sleepy and everything would go black. Then I'd wake up again. I wanted to go back to our farm in Ohio, and sometimes when I'd fall into one of them strange sleeps, I'd be there with my ma, tasting bacon powder biscuits fresh out of her wood stove. Then I heard a voice. For a moment I thought I was fever dreaming, but then I felt strong hands touch my brow, splash water in my face. Can you see that when Patricia Polacco wrote this story, she was focused on showing instead of telling? Imagine the story as a movie in your mind to describe what you envision. So keep that in mind today as you begin your writing lesson. Other examples of showing, not telling. I'm going to use some I instead of the ones that are on your screen. So I was angry. I started to yell. Instead of just telling what you did, show how you did it. I pursed my lips and clenched my fists into tight balls. Tried as I might, I could not contain myself, and within seconds I erupted like a volcano. Do you see how that shows how angry you were? What about he felt sad? That's telling my feeling. Show your feeling. An ache started deep down in his stomach. He turned away as his eyes welled up with tears. Can you envision it in your mind? Let's look at one more. Let's say I was happy. A gigantic grin spread across my face, and my eyes lit up like the sky on the 4th of July. Which one of those makes your writing more interesting and urges the reader to keep reading? I was happy, I was excited, or a gigantic grin spread across my face and my eyes lit up like the sky on the 4th of July? I know that you see that showing rather than telling is the way to go. All right, let's switch gears here. I want to talk about central ideas and concluding statements. I want to talk about concluding statements first. A concluding statement is an effective ending. And endings are crucial because they are the last thing that a reader reads, and they leave a lasting impression. So today we will read some mentor text and talk about how the endings work well. And we're going to study some stories written by other authors to get ideas for how to write endings. So let's look at this one. In Mem Fox's story, Koala Lou, this is how she ends the story. But before I read that, I want to tell you that when you come to the end of the story or a writing piece, your voice needs to close down the story. That is, your intonation, your voice, your rhythm signals that this is the end of the story. So when you come to the end of a story, your voice needs to close down the story. So let's listen as I read the ending of Mem's book, Koala Lou. So in this story, Koala had lost the race as she crept home sad. But then her mother found her. And this is what's in the book. Her mother said, "Koala Lou, I do love you." And she hugged her for a very long time. We can emulate how stories end in any text that we find. So I want to challenge you that as you're reading your books, I want you to study the endings and see how you can put those endings in writing. So we're going to look at all parts of an article next. And in this short article, we're going to discuss how the author used important elements of writing to convey the message. Okay, so this is an article about the biobus. Most cars run on gasoline and most trucks and buses use diesel fuel. But the biobus in England uses a very different energy source, human poop. Now this right here, boys and girls, is a hook to get the reader's attention. We already know what the topic is going to be about. The topic is going to be about the human bus and how it uses human poop to fuel the bus. The biobus runs on a kind of fuel made from human waste and food scraps. When these materials break down, they create a gas called biomethane. Experts collect the biomethane and turn it into fuel for vehicles. So right there we have our central idea that's clearly stated in a topic sentence. And that's so important for expository writing. You got to tell the reader what they're going to be reading about. And the writer here has achieved that both in their hook and in this topic sentence. The idea of a poop-powered bus might make you giggle, but it's seriously good for the planet. Like sunlight or water, biomethane is a renewable fuel. Renewable fuels create less pollution than fossil fuels like gasoline or diesel. Plus, unlike those other fuels, we'll never run out of biomethane, as long as there are people and animals around to create it. Here I've underlined some supporting sentences that provide appropriate facts, details, examples, and explanations about the central idea. Notice, this is not a very long article at all, but it is a well-written article because it has a central idea stated in a topic sentence, and it has appropriate supporting details that support the main idea. The bio bus hit the road last month in England. Luckily for the passengers, the fuel is odorless, so the bio bus doesn't stink. Now, from my intonation, you can tell that's a pretty good ending. Your concluding statement or statements effectively bring the writing to a close. And the writer expresses himself well, and we can feel how much he actually cares about this topic. He uses appropriate details. His central idea is clearly stated, and it's just a really nice short piece of writing. Other ways to close your writing is that you can, whether you're writing your own writing or whether you're revising the writing of others, you can use these methods to select the best way to close a writing piece. You can ask a reader a question related to the topic, give the piece of writing a sense of closure or completion. You can summarize the key points. Just make sure you're leaving a lasting impression. Now, off you go. I know you're going to think about showing and not telling today whenever you write. I want you to start this today. No more papers full of telling. Show the reader. Also, I want you to work on writing effective concluding statements or endings that will sound good. Today, think about how to make your endings special. Off you go. Bye-bye for now.